Well, that's the thing about Ovechkin. I think he had 2 last night. And
he's gross.
Like they're playing, I think it was Ottawa they played last night. And a lot of guys would be like, we're going to win anyway. Maybe this is a load management night. Maybe I take it easy. But a guy like him is like, no, I'm going to score 5 tonight if I can.
Yeah, he's creeping up on the big boys, too. Like, he's coming up on Yzerman.
But Solani,
he caught Solani last night.
Yeah, he's at 11.
He's coming up on the heavy hitters.
Oh,
now.
yeah.
Well,
when you get into the high 6, you are in rare territory.
I was posed this question again, and I think it's way too early, but if this guy's, they did the math. If he has 5 more years at like 37, 38, like he's now kissing up on Gretzky.
He's getting to 50 again this year.
Yeah, I think
he's going to hit 50 again.
Yeah.
And if he doesn't, it's like 47 or 48.
Right, it's going to be high 40s.
The only reason I think he won't do that is because I don't think he's going to play 5 more years. I think he'll be in Miami or the KHL.
Yeah.
I don't think he's going to play in the NHL for 5 more years.
Isn't
he 34?
I think he's 33.
He'd be 33
right
or 34. He's a year older than Sid. I think he's an 86th birthday. So he'll be 34.
Yeah. He's 34 right now. September.
But he's not slowing down. Like he's probably going to score 50 again. Why would he not do that next year? Like, why all of a sudden next year will he be a 22-goal scorer?
Well, do you remember?
Unless there's injuries that pop up. That's the only thing that can change.
The idea, the wheels fall off sooner or later, and who the hell knows when it's going to happen?
Right, but
most guys' wheels are falling off at 29 nowadays.
We had, and it wasn't. We had a comment about him a couple years ago where he scored 33, and that was an off season. Remember, we were like, nah, you know what? The wheels are starting to slow down. After that 33, he went 49, 51, and now he's at 26, 44 games in. And then go farther back, in 2010 and 11, he had 32, and that was an off season. That was when you and I were first starting on radio together. And
it was a legitimate debate. If
like concern.
And if you could trade his contract, because remember he signed like a 13-year deal at 9.5.
Yeah,
it was a monster, and you're like, if this guy starts scoring only 30 a year, you're in trouble.
And it's funny how the narrative changes when you win, because how many times, and I'm sure we're guilty of this, I'll openly admit it, like you're never going to win with that guy. How many times did you say, I know it took 13 years for him to win, but you look back, the competitive nature, you can't really blame it on him. You blame the supporting cast. You blame because he was doing his job. Like his playoff numbers are...
His numbers are fine in the playoffs.
Yeah.
They're better than fine.
But that's the point. Like you know, until you win, like there's always that question mark. But in going back and looking at his career, he's one of the most amazing players to watch. Like I actually feel like happy and I don't know what's the word.
Like prideful that you got to play against him?
And play against him and watch him in the last 13 years. Like, he's been amazing.
The next layer to his legacy is, okay, one of the greatest goal scorers of all time. He's accomplished that already.
Right.
Based on era adjustment, you could make a strong argument he's the greatest of all time. The greatest. But he's in the conversation with Gretzky and Bossy and a couple of other guys.
I go right to the goaltending, Brian. You look at the goaltending, no disrespect to any of the greats you just mentioned.
Right.
The goaltending position, he started playing in the NHL when the goaltender started mastering the position.
Yeah.
Like the pads, the equipment, the style, the structure. He started when that started.
Right.
And he's put up those numbers. It's incredible.
It makes it that much more impressive. But in terms of legacy, like Sid for me is already top 10 all time. Mm-hmm. And it's a difficult conversation to have because I can't speak. I didn't watch Maurice Richard play or Jean Beligaud play. But Crosby, for me, is in the top 10.
On fire today.
I feel good.
Yeah.
I think Ovechkin is right there.
No kidding.
Like, by the end of it, are we talking about 2 guys that have crept into the top 10?
Of all time.
Of all time.
And they were in our era.
Absolutely.
Like right in our wheelhouse.
There's any question. What's wrong with saying that Alex Ovechkin can't be in the top 10 of all time?
Oh, he can be, but is he today? Is he today?
For me, yes. For me, yes.
So he's knocking out Lafleur or
Beliveau. That's the problem.
I mean, it's a difficult conversation to have.
Because you know the Quizmaster's going to come scissor kicking through the glass and talking about a guy.
I think the Quizmaster would fully support Ovechkin being in the top 10 of all time.
I don't know if he would.
Really think, as stubborn as he can be, I think he would be all in on that. And I bet you it's time to almost revisit that discussion.
I think it should be. like Gretzky, Lemieux, or Howe. That's always your top four in some sort of
in some order.
combination, some sort of order. Then you get into Richard and Beliveau and.
Well, if you're going to talk about those two guys, the
Lafleur.
Quizmaster will do a flying scissor kick and punch you right in the face.
I'm probably missing a defenseman, Doug Harvey or something like that.
Lidstrom. Like we're missing goalies.
Goalies, absolutely.
Like, I think Hasek's the greatest goalie you ever played the game.
Goalies make it difficult because it's such a different category. It's such a different position.
And you talk about era adjusted.
Right.
Like, how am I to judge a guy who didn't wear a mask and play 500 games in a row? Like, that's not fair for me to do that, but it's always a great debate. Actually, I was going to go the other way, watching Pittsburgh play again. Like, it amazes me that Geno Malkin was not on that top 100 list. Like, it still amazes me.
It's ridiculous that he wasn't.
It's the dumbest thing I've ever heard of.
It's so...
Taze was on there, and you didn't put Malkin on there?
Like, I still think about that. And again, I know it's subjective and all that, but I don't know where I was, maybe in Vegas or whatever, where they trotted out that top 100. And all I could think about was, like, Geno Malkin's not in this.
I'd have to go back. I mean, we can all go back and look at it, but I'm sure we could stop pretty quickly and say, wait a minute.
Right.
Like, you're telling me. But again, then you get into different eras and different players. Like, I'm looking at it quickly just on the fly. Tim Horton was in it. Like, Tim Horton was a great, great player. I don't know how he compares to Evgeny Malkin.
Right.
You know, I don't know how, like, Dave Keon was in there.
Well, this is where you got yourself in some trouble when you ranked the top 25 Leaf players and you left off somebody that we know pretty well.
Right, because there were very stringent rules and regulations.
You know better than that.
There were very
you left
specific.
Off Wendell Clark.
We didn't need to say the name, but I mean.
No, Wendell. I got to be honest. That was. I don't admit to. That was bad.
But you had a guy on there like that.
I had some guy in the 1920s.
Well, you had Tux ahead of Wendell.
No, I didn't.
No, Tux.
I didn't have Tucker in there. But I had. It was because it was explained to me.
You were trying to impress the Quizmaster.
I was.
You put at least 5 gentlemen on that list. You've never heard their name.
Because he was expressing it to me. I spoke with him for like 45 minutes.
You dug up on the internet like it was some kind of Ancestry.com project.
Right.
That's what you did.
No, it was. I had like Busher Jackson. I had all these guys.
Busher Jackson.
And the thing is, you were so strong in your reserve.
I was so adamant about it.
Busher, he was dominant.
I had to have my guy Busher Jackson on the list.
He had 12 goals in 1928, and that led the team by 7 goals back then. So if you compare it to what Wendell did in 1987, I don't know. I was all over the map.
It's just an awful take.
Yeah, it was embarrassing. I'll admit to that. Wendell's it's Wendell and Gilmore, my 2 favorite Leafs of all time.
Yeah,
if it was just based on my fandom, then it would be very different. But the team's been around for 100 years.
Yeah.
We lose sight of guys that did play in the 20s and 30s that are in the Hall of Fame. As much as I love Wendell, he's not in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
And I think that was kind of the argument I was trying to make, but I'll admit that was a bad take. That should be on the Worst Stuff show.
It was your opinion at the time.
Based on the rules and regulations of the experiment, detailed to me in diligent fashion.
But yeah, I think Ovi has crept up, and not even crept up. He's in he has to be in that conversation. He has to be.
Yeah, top 10 all time. He's got to be in that.
Because the game is about winning. The game is about scoring goals. Like, those guys make the most money. He's arguably the greatest goal scorer of all time.
And one of the most physically daunting players of all time.
Yeah, he's not a fighter. But
although talk to Svechnikov about that. Like, there's one fight he had, and it got ugly quick.
Yeah. But he loved the physicality. And, you're right. He played in an era where, the game was still quite different back then. Hooking, holding, slashing, like battling through. There was some irritability. He kind of the dead puck era where there's trapping everywhere and stuff. He found a way to get through it. Now, there's been some amazing video recently online of Mario Lemieux on a breakaway getting hooked about 38 times and a guy water skiing behind him.
And then he holds him twice.
It's awesome.
That era was unbelievable.
It's awesome.
How, that used to be taught as a kid. I remember that.
I watched some of the World Junior game where we won gold. And Todd Harvey, turned his stick over and hooked a guy's arm to the ground. Brian Berard from the States. And Bob McKenzie was doing color, and he goes, "What a great play by Todd Harvey to get the puck back." hooks Brian Berard down to the ice and then takes the puck. I'm like, that is 4 minutes of hooking in today's game. 4 minutes,
sure.
not just 2.
Yep. Well, that's the point. You can't compare eras. I mean, it's very difficult to do.